Morning. Today's the third day of Tammuz, the day on which, as we say, the Rebbe ascended to a higher level, and we're in the middle of chapter 4 of the Tzemach Tzedek's Derech Mitzvotecha, Sa'amanos Elokus.
I found it on Safari, by the way.
Oh, you found it?
Yeah, what is it called? Mitzvahs?
Ha'amanos Elokus. But it's better maybe to see it on Chabad, that'll work. But maybe they just copied it.
Maybe the copy.
Yeah,
it's easier to, whatever.
It could be. Okay, so we... No, they do, of course they do. Yeah, it's piece by piece.
Okay.
Anyway. So says now the Tzemach Tzedek. Even though what the Tosfos Yom Tov said, that the Maharal's words are true, that Hashem is not Yediyah. That's not he in himself. That's not his etzem. Etzem, we said, is a word that's very difficult to translate because there's no one word in English. You have to say the thing in and of itself. So the etzem of Hashem, he in himself, is not mind. He's not knowledge. Because he's way above that. As it was explained. So for him, knowledge is like a creation. Like the body of any one of the creatures that he created. It's something that he creates. And as we say the verse, everything you have created in wisdom. So wisdom for him, wisdom for him is something that he makes and something that he does. Even wisdom, what we call wisdom, what we think, we said that for Aristotle, wisdom was God. And that's where the Rambam took this from, apparently. It doesn't mean that the Rambam is subscribing to Aristotle. It just means that he thinks that it aligns with what the Torah says. It doesn't mean that he's an Aristotelian. He suddenly became an Aristotelian.
He can have his own opinion.
Yeah, he has the same opinion. He agrees. He says, this is what the Torah says, and I have proofs for it, whatever his proofs are. Still, says the Tzemach Tzedek, there is a difference. Knowledge is not the same thing as a physical creation, which is completely separate from God. Because every body, by definition, is distinct. The definition of a body is that two bodies cannot occupy the same space. That's not true about things that are not like physical. That are not physical. Things that are not physical can be contained in the same space because they're not limited by space. But when you talk about a body, a physical body, the definition is that it cannot occupy the same space as another physical body. So Hashem is indeed not a physical body, but the moment that there is a physical body, it is by definition distinct and separate from godliness, which is of course everywhere. So bodies don't have that quality that they can be everywhere. And this was the big chiddush that he has, that knowledge is relative to a physical body, divinity. It is special. It is a creation, but it's a different type of creation. We already know, right? What kind of creation is it? It's what we call the Sfirot. It's what we call these illuminations that are like an intermediary between Hashem and the world. כלומר, שהיא ידיעה שלו שהוא יתברך עשה עצמו, יודע כמו על דרך משל, הרב שמשפיל עצמו, להתחכם עם תינוק קטן לפי השכלתו. Meaning, that knowledge is first of all, that he makes himself know, meaning God makes himself know in the same way, not in the way that he's making a child, but rather in the way in which he's lowering himself to be able to speak to the child. It's very, very different than making the child. Making the child is one thing. But lowering yourself to be able to speak to the child, you're taking yourself and you're limiting yourself into a language that the child can understand. You've taken yourself and contracted yourself. That's a tzimtzum.
It presupposes that creating that child is also creating that tzimtzum because...
Right, that's why the example is not good. I didn't say it right.
Okay.
Because he's not saying that the child is the creation and the knowledge. They're not in the same parable.
Okay.
He's just saying like a wise man will speak to a child. So the wise man, you're right, I didn't say it right. Like a wise man, when I come to speak, let's say I was wise, and I come to speak to my son, he's wiser than I am, but if, let's say I was wiser when he was very young, so I have to limit myself in order to be able to speak his language. Otherwise he won't understand me. But then I'm doing something to myself. It's not like, we would say, I'm enclosing myself in knowledge, in a lower type of thought.
It's a symptom.
It's a symptom from you. שאף על פי כן צמצום השכלת הרב אז אינו בחינת נפרד. You can't say that the persona that I'm now showing my child is different than who I am. It's me. It's still me, but in a limited form.
In a limited fashion. Yeah.
So there's a symptom there, shkoyach. Right in time. ואף על פי שאין המשל דומה לנמשל כי שכל הרב הוא מהותו ממש. But there is a difference even in this parable. Why? Because by the father or the teacher who's limiting himself to speak to the child, his mind is his essence. There you would say, here we agree with Aristotle. We say, you're right. The essence of man is his mind. It's part of his essence.
So see what you said before.
So when I speak to my child, I am limiting my essence. It's not just some, it's not like, let's say I'm picking up an egg, right? So when I pick up an egg, I don't use all the strength in my. That's all the problem with robotics, right? It was very, very difficult to get a hand, a robotic hand, to not crush the egg, because how do you get that exact pressure that will, on one hand, not let the egg slip? I can hold it upside down; it's not going to slip, and on the other hand, it's not going to crush it. So I'm limiting the power in my hand, but that's not me. Or it's not my essence. That strength I have in my hand, I would never say that's my essence. God forbid, if a person loses his hand, he hasn't lost himself. But with the mind, when I come to speak to the little child, that certainly is part of my essence. At least part of it. I would be much, much less of a human being. I wouldn't be me if I didn't have that knowledge, that ability to interact. So that, he says, is different than the way Hashem is, because Hashem is not his mind. And in the parable, the teacher is his mind, or the father is, at least partially in essence, that is his mind. But mind is not who Hashem is. It's not part of his essence at all. But still the parable holds, because what we mean to say is that it's true, it's not part of the essence, this knowledge, but still Hashem is taking himself, and there's just a bigger distance for him to take what is his essence and to place it within this knowledge. But he is placing himself there. He is bringing himself through the knowledge to be known to this child. So it's just a longer distance, he says. The distance here we mean like in terms of quality. The quality is far removed. Meaning that is to Hashem infinitely far, but still something he puts himself into. No, this is the Tzemach Tzedek. This is Chassidus already.
But he's making.
He doesn't agree with the Tosfos Yom Tov. By the Tosfos Yom Tov,
where's the difference?
Because Tosfos Yom Tov said there's no connection. That has no connection to Hashem. And we're saying, no, it has a connection.
Okay.
The connection is, even though it's not his essence, he limits himself to fit himself into this.
So he takes him further.
He's bringing himself, yes, he's going further than the Tosfos Yom Tov. That's what we said, that Chassidus is intermediate between philosophy and Kabbalah. It doesn't agree completely with a Kabbalistic point of view, which is Hashem can't be described at all.
Right.
It says, it's true, he can't be described, but he limits himself to be described.
Yes.
And he's limiting himself to become this knowledge. So that's very important. It's a very, very important and fragile point. Because it's easy to lose it. It's subtle.
Yeah, it's subtle.
It's subtle, and it's also fragile like the egg.
Yeah.
It's very easy to push too hard on it and then lose it. So if you have it now, that's good. אין זה לריחוק יותר שצמצם כן, בסדר. אבל אם כל זה אינו נפרד חס וחלילה, וזהו לשון אלוקות. It's not separate from Hashem, this knowledge, because he's enclothing himself in it. This word enclothing is the most important word here. That's the operative word. That he's taking himself and he's limiting himself to be within something. Usually, when you think about the tzimtzum, you don't ask. So, what did he limit himself into? That's usually not the question that's asked in Kabbalah, and Chassidus does ask that question. That's why Chassidus says that. That's why Chassidus says that tzimtzum is lo kepshuto. It's not literal. It's a metaphor. Why? Because really, what tzimtzum is saying is Hashem took himself, and he limited himself to be enclosed in something that he's appearing through. Kabbalah doesn't see it that way. Kabbalah says the simple understanding of Kabbalah is Hashem left, as it were. He's mistalek, like Gimel Thomas. He's gone, and then now the scene is clean. And now he acts from outside. The usual Kabbalistic sense was not that Hashem and the world is one. That wasn't the way that they understood it. But the moment that you understand Hashem and the world is one, then you understand Tzimtzum Lo Kepshuto. That's exactly what exactly what Tzimtzum Lo Kepshuto means.
But the Nefesh HaChaim actually seems to say that also the Gra they agree that Tzimtzum Lo Kepshuto.
So that's a new take. And Nefesh HaChaim says it, but is it true? We say that it's not true.
So at least he was also
the Rebbe says that he was affected by the Alter Rebbe.
Yeah,
after they met, he went to see him as a young man.
Wait, he was affected by, I don't know the story. The Rebbe was affected. What, I didn't.
The Nefesh HaChaim, Reb Chaim of Volozhin, who wrote Nefesh HaChaim, he was a Talmud of the Gra. So in Nefesh HaChaim, he seems to say that the Tzimtzum is not literal.
Like Chassidus.
Like Chassidus.
Okay.
So what is that? So the explanation usually in the Chassidus is that he was very much affected by Chassidus. That he deviated from what the Gra had taught. That's the usual explanation.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, so I don't know what's going on, but so we made good progress with it. So that's what it means that it's that knowledge is divine. It's divine because it's a divine article of clothing, as it were. It's something that God contracts himself into. It is a force or some kind of faculty that Hashem is creating, and then it's not just like the creation of a child. It's something entirely different, something that he's putting himself into. So in a sense, it's an extension of himself. That's the word, pashtut. Okay, so we'll see more tomorrow.